Even though I think everyone's aware of what's happening in the real estate market with the struggle of inventory of houses right now, I'll still hear the remark that I'm going to wait to buy a house until the housing market pops and the bubble bursts. And I'm going to go over in this video why, if you're ready and willing to buy, why you should probably act now and just go make the purchase, because from what I'm seeing, I think real estate prices are just going to keep going up for a bit. Who knows how long, because no one can predict the future, but let's dive into what I'm saying right here. So I just want to give a little historical background of the last market crash and why everyone's so scared of the next housing pop. Because back in 2008, a huge reason of why the housing market exploded and just plummeted was due to the lending standards back in the day. Back then, you really didn't have to show proof of income. You didn't have to show proof of anything. You would just go try to get a loan, give them some faulty stuff or some fake documents stating that you made a certain amount of money, and guess what? You got a house. There would literally be people without a job that had like 4 different houses in different states because people just kept lending them money. And guess what? When you lend to someone and you're not checking if they're an actual qualified buyer and can afford that house, well, that led to what happened with a ton of foreclosures because everyone was defaulting on their loans that they shouldn't have even got in the first place because they could never afford them. And in 2007, 20 out of the top 25 subprime mortgage lenders actually defaulted and went bankrupt because of this. This led to housing values dropping 19% in 2008. That's in 1 year. And during the financial crisis, homeowners' net worth actually plummeted by 26% with a cumulative loss of over $17 trillion across the country. So with that little bit of a background, to start this off, lending is way better off than what it was back then when the housing market just crashed. So one thing I was actually surprised to see when I was doing some research for this video is that in the last quarter of 2023, the average credit score for a home borrower getting a mortgage was 770. This blew me out of the water. I was quite surprised. Let me know if you're surprised in the comments below, because that's a pretty good credit score. I don't care who you ask. So lending standards have done nothing but become more secure since that housing crash, because guess what? Lending doesn't want to be the problem for the next housing crash. And despite interest rates hitting an all-time high for the last 23 years in October of 2023 when it came in just above 8%, it hasn't really deterred any buyers. Now, when that happened, there was definitely a little bit of a dip. But now that interest rates are back around the 7s, you can maybe even find one in the 6s if you're really, really paying attention to it. But it's not deterring people, and the cost of housing for a monthly payment has actually went up almost 10%. I think it was 9.6% in the last year. So this is just showing that homes are still gaining value, and of course, interest rate depends on what your monthly payment's gonna be. So even though real estate prices have been going up, and sellers right now are actually just seeing that their home value keeps going up and up and up, but a lot of people aren't selling because of the low interest rate they have on their mortgage. So they don't want to get out of that situation to go get a higher interest rate, and they don't want to be in the position of the buyers that are in position right now where they just can't find a house due to the lack of inventory. So many people are holding on because they don't want to be in that position. And if you don't want to be like most viewers, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, because stats show over 93% of you aren't subscribed to the channel. So I would greatly appreciate it. So this all means that the real estate market is still controlled by the sellers. It is a seller's market, and I think most of you guys know this. We simply do not have enough homes on the market for the buyers that are looking to buy those homes on the market. This means if you see a house that's well kept and properly priced, well, chances are you're still going to be competing with multiple offers. Now, please pay attention that I said if it's well kept and properly priced, you're going to see multiple offers. Now, I'm still seeing some homes that have price drops or even expired listings. And the reason for this is because the sellers or the agents don't really know the product that they're selling. Of course, it's still a seller's market, but it doesn't mean you can just put a price tag on whatever house you have and you're going to get that accepted. So when you're going to list a house, and if it's your house and you've noticed, hey, the other homes that are like mine and similar have sold for X, and I'm listing $50,000 to $100,000 above that, well, chances are you're not going to get that because your product's not worth that. So that's where you're seeing these longer days on market, you're seeing price drops and expired listings, is because they're just overpricing their product because they feel like, hey, it's a seller's market, I can list for whatever I want. If it sells, all the better. So that's kind of what's happening on that side. And now another point I want to touch on is that we're just seeing not enough new constructions being built, and there's a couple reasons for this. One is because a lot of home builders kind of got bent over backwards during the housing crisis because they were putting them up all the time, and then the whole market crashes and they're stuck with half-built homes. So they don't want to go through that again. And on the other hand, during the COVID pandemic, supply shortages were everywhere. People were struggling just to get handymen into their house to do work and get the supplies needed for that, let alone go build a brand new house. So we definitely need to see more new builds to actually have new product to sell to people if other sellers aren't going to be selling their house. And the last thing I want to touch on is the default on mortgages, because I'll hear even people say, well, a lot of people are getting loans that they can't afford and it's coming eventually. And that could be true, but right now there's no indication that there's a whole slew of foreclosures just coming to hit the market. That is not the case. Everyone's still pretty good with their payments, and from the stats, no one's really falling behind where you're going to see 1 million foreclosures hit the market. So essentially the market has been continuing to rise since like 2020, and everyone keeps saying it's going to come down, it's going to come down. And I just don't see that happening unless something dramatic happens, because we're literally just stuck where we are. So either there's a couple ways this could happen. Either the home prices could literally just get to a point where it's pricing so many home buyers out of the market that people can't buy the house, so therefore inventory is going to build up, and then there's going to be an excess of homes, and then it slowly shifts over to a buyer's market and sellers kind of lose control. Another thing that could happen is an explosion of new builds happen, and maybe the government starts giving breaks to builders, and this will create new inventory for the market. Not sure on that. And then the last thing I kind of thought of is if interest rates finally come down to a low enough level that actually incentivizes these sellers with those low mortgage rates, say, hey, interest rates aren't really the thing I'm holding on to anymore. If I'm sick of this house, I'm going to sell it, and my values have gone up a lot. But the issue with that is, yes, you're going to be creating more inventory on the market because sellers are going to be listing their home and probably upgrading to a new home. But since the interest rate's actually dropping, you're going to be seeing another huge slew of buyers, not even just the buyers that are going to be selling, just new buyers coming in because they have also been waiting for interest rates to drop. So that is probably the most likely situation that happens. That's usually the ebbs and flow of the market. But again, I think we're still going to be short on inventory just because it is what it is. So what are your thoughts on the current housing market? Let me know in the comments below, and I will catch you guys for next week's video.